Next up, we have Woo Kim, who's going to join us. She's going to head up here. She's Director of International Student and Scholar Services, York University, coaching cultures and human-centered leadership, empowering frontline teams for CX excellence. Welcome. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? Good, good. We just had some cookies, so maybe some sugar's going, hopefully. As just introduced, and you'll see on the screen shortly, I'm sure, my name is Woo Kim. My pronouns are she and her, and I work at the York University. I've worked at several universities, and sometimes I get confused. But I've worked in student affairs for about 20 years. I know, how does she look so young? But I've done a lot of work in leadership development, student development. I've worked at 5 different universities, and I think I've trained or supervised upwards of like 1,000 students over the last 20 years, which actually, like when you break it down per year, that's not that many. But one of my favorite parts of what I've done is coaching. And a lot of what I've heard the last 2 speakers talk about actually really relates to coaching, all of this. We heard from the last speaker about AI, change, getting to know your team, and coaching is a way to really do that. So like I said, I've worked in student affairs. I've really only worked in universities. I was a kindergarten teacher for a little bit. So this is really, I love this. I think teaching is a really important part of what we do when we're leading teams, and that motivation piece is really important as well, especially when we're talking about change, especially when we're talking about uncertainty. And there's a lot of change and uncertainty right now. I can tell you in my sector, if you've kept up with the news at all, many universities and colleges are really struggling. See some nods, yeah, and there's a lot of worry on my team, right? And so part of what I need to do is keep up morale, right? Keep up motivation, help them feel safe, feel like they've got a place, and just let them know we are gonna figure it out, and it's gonna be different, and it's a little bit scary. I'm scared too, but we're gonna do this. We're gonna work through it together. So what we're going to talk about today, just on the screen here, so what are the objectives in coaching, and then a little bit about my approach. I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't always work. I wish I could be like, it works 100% of the time, all your staff are going to be amazing after this, no problems. No, you're still going to have issues, but hopefully this reduces some of those issues and helps you build relationships with your team. So when I go into coaching, one of the things I always think about is, what are my objectives? What do I want to accomplish when I'm coaching my team, right? So for me, it is elevating skills and performance for the staff members, the organizations, and frankly, my own benefit, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a little bit. I want to empower staff to make good decisions without me. That's part of the making my benefit piece as well. Develop their skills to do great work now and in the future. And of course, build relationships, psychological safety, and build trust as well. Okay, so let's talk about objectives. Oh, sorry, before we get to that, here's my approach to doing that. And I thought really hard about how I was going to distill this down into just a few points, into 30 minutes, 25 minutes for you all. And I came up with these 4 things: share the why, coach skills, mindset, and motivation, feedback. It's important, right? And then what is your mutual contract between you and your team? And we're going to talk about how all of these things build relationships, psychological safety, and trust. So anyone know Simon Sinek? You've heard, yeah, okay. Huge crush on Simon Sinek right here. When I left UBC, my student team knew how much I love Simon Sinek, and they actually wrote to him on his website, got him to sign and personalize one of his books, and gave that to me as my going away present, and like tears, of course. But this is something I think that's really important, sharing the why. Why is this important? You want to enable big picture thinking, right? So you want to separate between the task that they're doing and the final objective, whether that's your team's objective, your organization's objective, their own objective, whatever that is, right? So I'll give you an example. On my team, I have a group of 5 immigration advisors. You could consider these advisors as doing very transactional work. A student comes in with a question, they give you the answer, or they give them the answer, and off the student goes, right? So an example, a student comes in, they have a study permit, it's about to expire, and they ask, how do I extend my study permit, right? Advisor could say, here are the instructions, best of luck, right? Technically, that's right. You know, here are the instructions. They're on the website for Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. You need these documents, off you go. What we have found, however, is that many of those students have a whole host of other things they're dealing with, right? So what I've worked on with my team is saying, why do we have immigration advisors? Why do we have advisors at a university, right? It's to have a point of contact for students who don't know where else to go. To them, we are the university, right? Doesn't matter to them that we're in immigration, but we're not in academic advising, we're not in financial services. We are the university, right? How many folks, for contact centers, like I know I've called somebody and been like, you are this company, what do you mean? You don't know the answer, right? So although we know what our internal structures are for our clients, for our students, for our customers, it doesn't matter to them, right? So what I said to my team was, you are the university. I know you think you're just an advisor, but you are the university. If they come to you and they ask you a question, they expect that you are going to support them and ask them all the right questions so that, because they don't know, right? We're the experts. They don't know what they need to know. They expect us to do that, right? So what I want them to see is that their job isn't just answering an immigration question. It's about supporting a student's journey through the university. It's about showing them that they belong at the university by treating them with respect, kindness, answering their full questions, being really thorough, right? Our job, everyone's job at the university, is to support a student from before they come so that they choose us, right? First of all, let me tell you, there's a lot of competition out there. They have to choose us, and then we have to show them that they're going to be supported all the way throughout, right? That's our job. Then they were like, oh, we get it. Okay, so when a student comes in, we have to ask them, when does your study permit expire? How many courses are you currently enrolled in? Have you failed any courses? Have you taken any part-time semesters? All of these things are really important. Does it take much longer? Yes. But all of my advisors are willing to do that extra work because they've seen the payoff of it. They've seen that students feel supported. They see that they've made a difference for the student who comes in super overwhelmed, and they've been like, let me ask you these questions. All right, let's work on this together. Let me call my colleague over in academic advising. Let me call my colleague over in student financial services. And they help that student through, and in the end, the student's like, oh my goodness, thank God. Thank you, right? There were all these things I didn't know. I thought I was alone. You've helped me. I feel good about being at this university. That's the objective. That's the why of what we do. So again, we want to make sure that staff see the final destination and can make detours if needed. I talked about making my life easier, how coaching makes my life easier. Sometimes it's like, you know, a staff member will come to you. You may have this, somebody who's on your team who reports to you, they come to you with every single question, right? And you're like, oh my goodness. I gotta get some work done, right? And when I first started as a manager, this is what I was seeing. And I was spending so much time answering emails and phone calls and questions that I wasn't getting anything else done. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong here? Why don't they know what to do? Well, I wasn't sharing the why. I wasn't showing them what the full path was. Giving them that why gives them the ability to make good decisions. they can think through. If they know why we're going to a certain path or to a certain objective, they know what they can say yes to, what they can say no to, how to get around a barrier. Right? How do we do this? We heard Naz talk earlier about get to know your team, spend some time with them. I do this through regular one-on-ones, and I have 10 staff, 11 staff, but I also have managers who also manage some of those folks. But when I had 5 people reporting into me plus a couple of managers, 7 people, there's only so many hours in a day, I would just do 30-minute one-on-ones with them every other week. And it was just like a quick boom, 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 boom. What are you working on? What's going on? But then I would make sure to go and like have little check-ins with them, just like really informal whenever I could, right? Team and staff meetings. This is so important because, you know, what the previous speaker talked about was sharing information that you have. I try to share as much as I'm allowed to in terms of how, with the financial situation of universities and colleges, we shared as much as we could, right? Whatever we were allowed to share, we shared, because we said, we want you to know what's happening. We want you to understand what's coming down the pipe. We want you to get ready for that. You know, I always say no one likes surprises. I don't care what surprise. Maybe if you're getting proposed to, that's a good thing, but like most things, people don't like surprises. You kind of want to know what's coming up, right? And so for us, for me, sharing, hey, listen, this is what I went to the Senate, University Senate meeting, here's what I heard, right? This is what the senior leadership is sharing with us about the budget. The deficit looks real bad, everyone, but here's what we're going to do, right? But then also saying, I don't know yet, right? But we're going to share as much as we can with you as soon as we can. So that's the business side. I also share my approach and my expectations. I always say to them, here are my expectations, right? When I have a new staff member, I talk about my style, I talk about my approach, I talk about, you know, I ask them, how would you like to receive feedback? Here's my style in giving feedback. Let's figure out a way that works together, right? So having that communication is really important. Ooh, coach skills, mindset, and motivation. I think, so I used to coach girls volleyball, like 13 and 14-year-olds, and it's so fun, but, you know, in that, and I used to teach grade 1 in kindergarten, you know, in that, I wasn't just teaching little kids how to read, right? I wasn't just teaching teenage girls how to bump set spike. I was teaching 5 and 6-year-olds how to be in school, how to be successful in school. We were teaching them how to manage emotions. We were teaching them how to raise your hand and sit patiently sometimes, right? So those are skills, but it's a mindset and motivation as well, right? We're trying to get them motivated to continue on in school, in volleyball, you know, really coaching them to, if you make a mistake, you get back up and what you think about the next play, not the last play, right? So it's that mindset. So with your teams, you're also going to be coaching for skill, obviously, but that mindset and motivation is really important because it's going to help them get through some of the really tough situations, because I'm sure they're dealing with a lot of folks who are calling and complaining and really upset. Well, it's a lot to deal with, right? So how do we continue to motivate you through that? So figuring out in your one-on-ones, in your interactions with them, what motivates them. Share your thinking about process as well. Because again, I talked about no one likes surprises. You know all those TV shows you see and there's like somebody who's a worker and they're like, oh, my boss, they don't know what they're doing. I have no idea what's going on. It's because they don't know the why, right? And they haven't had that conversation with their boss, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, but when you understand what's happening, when your supervisor, when your manager is coaching you through these things, when you understand what your boss's process is, that really helps with motivation because you're less scared, right? That psychological safety continues to build. Next. Oh, okay, so now we get nerdy. I love a good theory. So this is where, thank you for laughing at my little quips. So Schlossberg's theory of transition. This is something that we use in student affairs a lot, actually. It is a theory, a student development theory that talks about how an individual handles change, how they go through transition. So in my world, we use this for orientation and first-year experience pieces. In your world, it might be around a process change, a business change, a sector change, an operations change. And so Nancy Schlossberg, my good friend, says that the way a person deals with transition, part of how they deal with transition, starts with the 4 S's: self, situation, support, and strategies. So when you're coaching somebody, when you are talking to somebody about an upcoming change, think about what do you know about this person, right? So when you're thinking about self, what do you know about this person? What resources have you seen them utilize in the past, right? What's in their little bag of tricks? How have you seen them handle change easily, or conversely, not so easily, right? Because you have to watch for those pieces as well. And what's gonna help, what do you think is gonna help them through this new change? Situation, so these are the characteristics of an event or a non-event. A non-event is something that you think is gonna happen, and it doesn't, right? So maybe you've got someone on your team, they've applied for a promotion or a different job, they think they've got it in the bag, they don't get it. That's a non-event. You still have to help support them and keep them motivated through that. So understanding what the situation is and how one situation might be different from another, also really important. Support and strategies, these kind of go hand in hand. So what are the social supports that they have or that are on your teams or through you, and the strategies that you can help coach in them or that you've seen them use in the past, right? So what I say to students, first-year students, I usually do like a little talk at orientation for our international students. I say to them, you're like an elite athlete. Clara Hughes, does anyone know who Clara Hughes is? Right, she's an Olympian, Canadian Olympian. She competes in speed skating in the Winter Olympics and cycling in the Summer Olympics. And so I tell international students, I'm like, you are like Clara Hughes. You did really well in your home country's school system. Now you're switching sports and you're gonna do really well in this country's school system. But you have the right skills to get you to this point. You just have to learn new rules, right? You know how to train. Clara Hughes knows how to train, knows how to eat well, knows how to exercise, knows how to listen to her coaches. She applies that to both sports. She might just use certain, different type of muscle, I don't know, I'm not good at sports, but a different type of strategy or skill for the 2 different sports. So that's what I say, that's what you're doing. You're going from your home system to the Canadian system, but you know how to study. You know how to stay disciplined. You know how to motivate yourself. You know how to reach out for supports and resources, right? So we really use this to show students and to support students in dealing with transition and change. You can do the same with your teams. Feedback, okay, so this is just, I used to use this years ago in training for student leaders about how to give feedback. Feel free to take a photo, but really, this is the how of giving a feedback. Be upfront, say, hey, giving you feedback, is that cool? Can I give you some feedback? Right, I always like to get consent on that because sometimes somebody's not ready. Right? I had a student who I said, hey, can I give you some feedback? And he froze for like 30 seconds. I'm like, okay, you're not ready, cool. Come back to me when you are. It's all good, right? But get them engaged in that. Ask them if you can give them feedback. Be pinpointed, be as specific as possible. Give them examples, right? Don't just say, oh, I think that you need to do this better. Well, what does that mean? Can you give me an example of when I didn't do it all that well? Oh, I don't know, you should just get better, right? So vague, right? So vague. Well, I don't know what to do. Am I doing this part right? Am I doing this part right? I don't know. So be specific about that. You can be, this is both for constructive and positive feedback. If someone's doing something well and you really want that behavior to continue, you want to make sure you're highlighting that as well, right? Man, I really love the way that you handled that complaint. You know, you really listened to them, you empathized with them, but you really drew a boundary. That was fantastic. You know, I really liked how you did that. Oh, this is good, and we're gonna talk about this in a second, but you're trying to be helpful, so be direct. It annoys people if you aren't, if you're vague. It may seem easier to soften the blow, but this often makes things more confusing and frustrating, 100%. And then timely and frequent, right? If you wait once a year for a performance review, they don't know what's coming. Again, people don't like surprises, right? People should know going into a performance review what their boss is gonna say, right? Because you've had the conversations and the feedback already, right? I usually give myself about a week. I have to give feedback about something within a week. After that, it's old news, right? It's not as effective. Okay. Ooh, some more nerd time. Sanford's theory of challenge and support. This is from like the 60s, which like, to me, in my, how old I am, to me the 60s was vintage, and I feel like now the 60s is like ancient history, which makes me so sad. But this theory, pretty self-explanatory, challenge and support. Essentially what it says is that if you provide challenge for someone, you want to provide commensurate support, right? If you don't provide enough support, but you provide too much challenge, it's going to be really frustrating for them because they don't know how to do this. If it's a new thing, if it's a new skill for them, and you're like, go do it, best of luck, they're going to be like, what? Where do I even start with this? Right? If you give them a task and you're like, okay, step 1, put your shoes on. Step 2, tie your shoes. That's too much support, right? Then you're like micromanaging and over-supporting. No learning happens. They're going to come to you every single time something happens with a new question, right? You want to hit that sweet spot right in the middle for growth, where you're providing just enough challenge and just enough support for A, what they're ready for, and B, the level to which you want them to achieve, right? Kind of makes sense, right? Feels right. I say this to my team all the time. Being nice is very different than being kind. Being nice is easy. Being kind is hard. But kindness is holding people accountable and committing to their development. It is very easy to be nice, truly. Oh, that's okay, no big deal. Yeah, no, that wasn't even a mistake. No, it's fine. Let me just do that for you. That's easy, right? We all do that. But it's not kind, because they're not learning, right? They're gonna come across that same thing over and over again. They will have learned nothing. If somebody's, the classic example, somebody's walking down the street, they've got like a giant mark, like for folks who wear makeup, like maybe you've got a giant mark of lipstick across your cheek. Yeah, it would be nice to not say anything because you're like, oh, I don't want to embarrass them. But that's not kind because they're walking around with a giant mark on their face, right? So when you're giving feedback, when you're coaching, it is, I think, better to be kind than to be nice. If we're going back to Sanford, we can see, like if you're only challenging, you're being mean. Don't be mean. If you're only supporting, if you're supporting too much, you're being nice. But that balance of challenge and support, that's when you're being kind. And then lastly, there is a mutual contract between you and your team. You are asking them to perform. But in return, what is your end of the contract to your team, to your staff, right? What is your role in making their job better in their development? Oftentimes what I say to my team is, my job is to clear barriers that prevent you from reaching success, whether that's personal success or professional success or health success sometimes even, right? I will also say that my role is to show the direction of where the team and the organization is going together. That way, again, I'm showing them the longer term path so that they can make better decisions on their own. They can come to me with the bigger questions or with escalations, but the day-to-day, I want them to be able to handle that I don't need to be involved in those things, right? Because they can handle it. And then lastly, I will say to them, I want to get you to your current and next career goals, whatever those are. If that means I'm going to lose you in 3 years or 2 years, cool, because I want you to be successful. Why do I say that? Because it's motivating. Because I'm not saying, I want you to stay here forever, the only reason that you're important to me is to get this work done. No, I'm saying, I'm invested in your development, right? So I'm being upfront with them. So when I give them feedback, and I'm saying, hey, this is how you could improve your performance, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because she said to me, I'm invested in your career development, right? And ultimately, so what is the contract you have with your team? What will you provide for them in return for the work that they do? And sometimes we forget that because we're so busy and we're just trying to, again, the previous speaker said, we have to get those KPIs, we have to be productive, and we forget that sometimes. But as managers, we have to manage both that output and that productivity and the support and development and that mutual contract we have with our teams. It's really important, right? Ultimately, that helps our clients. Because if we've got staff who are learning, growing, developing, motivated, they've got the right mindset, they don't have to ask their manager 15 questions every time somebody comes and talks to them. That provides better service for the client. So, like I said, this works a lot, but not always. You are going to have to tailor a lot of what this is for who you're dealing with and who you're working with. But ideally, it helps you demonstrate to your team that you are invested in them, that you are supporting them, that they belong there, and that they are valued. And hopefully that brings trust, psychological safety, and builds a really good relationship between you and your team. And that's it. Any questions, comments, kind or rude remarks? Any comments about the US hockey team? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Nice. Hi, thank you, by the way. That was good. I was wondering, so we work in a large contact center. I have about 15 people on my team, but the team is much larger than that. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, a lot of the people on my team I receive feedback from other people above or equal footing with these people in our contact center, and I have to deliver feedback from other people to these people that are on my team. And sometimes I find that this feedback can be the most challenging to deliver because it's not coming direct from me, obviously, and I have to translate that into something that we both agree on and understand, right? Mm-hmm. I was just wondering if you had any tips for doing that.
Oh, yeah, that one's hard. So I have worked in places where, there are multiple managers and you're all in the same space or not, but you're interacting with the same folks, like each other's teams. And so one of the things that I have done with my colleagues is try to build a culture of feedback. That sounds so sorry, you guys are corporate, but it sounds so corporate. I'm in the touchy-feely education sector, so I'm but it is important to build that culture of feedback. If any manager sees that somebody's doing something that, maybe does require some feedback, they should be able to address that in the moment, right? It doesn't have to be a disciplinary action, right? It is really just oh, hey, I noticed that you were doing this. Let's try to do it this way, and here's why. Right? Then they can come back to you as the manager and say, hey, just so you know, I was just talking to Fred, and I let them know that X, Y, Z, right? Mm-hmm. Then you as the manager can follow up and say, oh, I heard you had a conversation with Fred, or with so-and-so about this. How did that go? Right? And again, because feedback isn't disciplinary always, right? It's about getting better.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking, I often find that I'm erring on the side of transparency when I receive that feedback, and sometimes it can't be delivered in the moment. It's not their person's fault. They could be open to the feedback, and it's just not the right time to receive it.
Yeah.
But I err on the side of being transparent about having received the feedback, but I'm not sure if that's always effective because I find that there's a fine line between feeling like there's a team against them or they feel like there's a team against them because there's multiple people providing that feedback.
Yeah.
Versus just feeling like it's an open environment and they can receive that. So.
Yeah, it is hard. I get that as well because if it's somebody who, they received an email from my team, right? And I'll get feedback saying, oh, so and so did this, and I'm like, okay, tattle, just kidding. But sometimes I'll say, can you describe what happened, right? To the other manager, can you describe what happened? Oh, if it's an email, can you send me that email? Then I take a look at it, I make an assessment, then I have a chat with the staff members, say, hey, tell me about this thing that happened, right? Because maybe it was a misunderstanding, I don't know, right? And so if you are asking for their side, it gives them an opportunity to kind of vocalize, hey, this is what happened. And then you hear their thought process, right? Because to me, it's like, I don't care if somebody, as I jokingly said, tattles. It's like, no, I want to fix the behavior, right? And sometimes the behavior is about the process and the mindset. Yeah. So walk me through your process. Ooh, got it. Okay. Hey, let's talk about this part. That help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I am in the negative time now, so I'm going to head out. But thank you so much for listening, and hope you've had a great conference. And sorry I wasn't here this morning. Your calendar lies to you sometimes. I'm very sorry.